Well, good morning, everybody. Here we are again for another Cars and Coffee with me, Kenny Brown. And if you're a car guy or gal that wants to get real information based off of experience, not what somebody else heard, you're in the right place because we got a lot of cool things to talk about this morning. Yeah, we got a lot of this is a really good episode this morning. So lots of cool things to talk about. What we're going to talk about is this is based off of some questions from last week. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of 3-link suspension versus 4-link versus torque arm. And that goes back to some questions from last week, which we're going to do a little bit. I'm going to talk about, another Transform Your Driving Experience workshop is coming up in the near future. And then there's been some, was passed on to me, there's been some kind of like a whole bunch of chatter, let's say, on the internet about jacking rails and F550 Mustangs. And of course, we'll answer questions. If you've got any questions, go ahead and send them in. We'll get to them a little bit later, or through this morning's episode. And then also, the questions that we're going to do today all come from Speed Therapy Society, the Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society. If you're not a member, I'd look it up. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing. It's a private Facebook group, and there's some really great people in there that share a lot of stuff. I see Carrie.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it's Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society Facebook group. So it's a private Facebook group. So you just Google it and you'll find it.
Okay, Kenny Brown Speed Therapy Society private Facebook group. Okay, where should we start this morning? I think let's start with, we got some questions here. I think let's go to the jacking rails first. That was passed on to me. I didn't see this exactly, but supposedly there's some chatter on the internet about jacking rails on S550 Mustangs. How that Ford's somebody wanted to know if our jacking rails would support the weight of the car. Well, absolutely, they will. Because I guess there's some people are going back and forth that you shouldn't use jacking rails and you should use jacking rails. And I guess Ford says you should not use jacking rails. You should jack it up on the pinch weld. Over the years, I've seen cars that have come in that people have jacked up the pinch welds and they get all bent out of shape, and all of a sudden the spot welds start to come undone. I've been using jacking rails in my Mustang since 1986, and we sell a lot of them, and it's something that you really, really need to use. Now, our jacking rails for the S550s, somebody wanted to know if they'll support the car. Trust me, they will. Our jacking rails, the 550s, are completely different than anything else in the market because we took kind of a different approach. We actually engineered the jacking rails rather than just take some tubing and slap it on. Yeah. I can tell you, jacking rails are pretty darn stout. This is actually made out of 12 gauge, which is like 105 thousandths thick. And something that's pretty unique, I don't know if you can see that, is they're not square. There we go. They're not square. And the reason they're not square is because the body, there's some really handy spots front and rear. We can bolt these things too. And with the 550s, the chassis are so rigid to start with, it's not necessary to weld on there because you can just bolt these right on, which makes it easier. And they're pretty stout. What we did is where these bolt to the chassis right here, it actually has a 5-degree slant to it, so not parallel to the ground. Some of the other jacking rails we've seen, they bolt flat to that, which means that they're kind of twisted. But with this, we actually have a 5-degree tilt built into it. So after it bolts to the chassis, it's now parallel to the ground. And so it's just a little bit below the pinch weld, so that when you jack the car up, you're not going to squash the pinch weld. That's the whole idea of jacking rails, is to preserve the pinch weld. Now on the Fox S197 and Gen 1 Mustangs, they all weld to the pinch weld, and also SN95 is a little different, but that also welds to the pinch weld. So you got a really strong place. You can jack up the car, you can put jack stands under there. To me, the whole concept of jacking up on the pinch weld or putting jack stands on the pinch weld, That's not, to me, that's not a good idea. So that hopefully that'll dispel some myths that whether or not to use jacking rails in a 550, absolutely. I mean, your life will be so much easier with jacking rails than without. So that takes care of that one. Let's see, we've got some. Oh, here we go. I can't. Carrie's not here to give me signs, so I have to try to remember this on my own. If you're on YouTube, you get three things to click: the like, subscribe, and the bell. Might as well do a hat trick. Hit all of them. If you're on Facebook, like us, share. If you get some buddies that you can share this with, go ahead and click the share thing, because the suspension part is going to be really, really good. In fact, I've taken a few pages out of the Speed Therapy Academy to kind of demonstrate the suspension. So that's something you're not going to want to miss, or you're not going to want your buddies to miss either. So if you've got some friends, why don't you click on that and share it with them. So let's, okay, let's take a look at, here's some questions. Mike Doan wanted about caging a car. Is it worth caging a car with a 6-point for HPDE track days, bolt-in versus weld-in? Obviously, weld-in is better, but you can't take the cage out if you decide to trade in the car or sell it. I mean, anytime you can add any additional strength into a car, it's a good thing. So yeah, for HPDE, if there's a safety measure, it also adds rigidity to the chassis. And you just can't add too much rigidity to the chassis. We go through in the Speed Therapy Academy talking about the street cars and race chassis and the big difference in how rigid racing chassis are. So, I mean, adding a 6-point, that'd be a great thing. And bolt-on, there's nothing wrong with bolt-on as long as it's bolted on tight. You use the lock nuts so it doesn't come loose. There's nothing wrong with that. That way you can, like you said, you can take it out and when you sell the car and either give it to someone else or put it in your next car. And then Alessandro want to know how and where to position the fire suppression system for road racing. Well, there's lots of places, and a lot of people have their own preferred places. Now, I'm guessing you're talking about the full fire suppression system that's got like a cable or a button that sets it off. Ironically, this is really weird. Next week in the Speed Therapy Academy, our master class is going to be the gentleman from SPA, and he's going to be specifically talking about fire suppression systems. Now, for me, where to place it? Well, you're talking about probably it's 5 to 10 pounds worth of weight. So you're going to want to put that somewhere in the car that you can use the weight to your advantage. I typically will put them right in the rear passenger seat floor. Because that gets them, behind the driver on the opposite side of the car, or you can put them somewhere in the left rear corner of the car. Because that's in a Mustang, that's always the lightest corner is the back. That's why we always stick the battery in the right rear corner. So any place that you need to put weight is a good place to put it. And like I say, I put them on the passenger side and the rear seat passenger footwell. It's low and it's behind the driver, and it's the opposite side of the driver. Or you can put it in the back. So, but anywhere like that, I mean, it's you got tubes that run everywhere, so it's not real critical from a plumbing standpoint. So it's just you think about where would you like to add this 5 or 10 pounds of weight. Okay, now Dale wanted to know about setting up sway bar end links. Okay, that's a good question. We got the 550 and the 197. End links, and these are double adjustable, which means that you can stick them in the car and you can screw them. You can make them longer or shorter just by screwing this. And there's a couple of advantages. Now sometimes when you lower a car, the sway bar all of a sudden starts kind of pointing up in the air. So you can actually use the double adjustable to kind of shorten it up a little bit to kind of bring it down. But the most important thing is to keep from having preload on your sway bar. What do I mean by that is, like, if you hook one side of your sway bar up, then if you go to hook the other side up, you have to maybe bend it a little bit to get the end link in. That's going to preload, and preload is what you don't want. You have a chance of, with a preloaded sway bar, of locking up a brake locking up one of your front tires under hard braking. So when you've got an adjustable one, you can put one on one side, and then the other side, you just adjust it until it just drops right in, so zero preload on it. So that's kind of like the advantage of the adjustable sway bar end links. Like I say, that's for a 550, and this one's for S197. Something else that I'll give you a couple little tips. I don't know if you can see this right there, but it's got the little marks on the bar, and then also there's some marks. They're really hard to see. There's marks on the there's a little bit of hash marks on the nut. What that means, that's left-handed thread. Anytime you've got like a radius rod or something like this that's got marks on one end, that's typically your left-handed thread. And left-handed thread nuts always have like a little hash mark on the corner. So that's kind of like a little tip, so you know which ends up. And something else that I do, anything that we put together at any kind of like rod end or anything where we, let's screw this, and you can see that. You can see the different color. That's anti-seize. On the radius rods, all the radius rods we put together all have anti-seize, and sway bar end links all have anti-seize for a couple reasons. One, it helps with, you got dissimilar metals which have a tendency to kind of do some chemical things over time and kind of get locked up. Also, it makes it really easy to adjust. If you have to adjust it, it makes it really easy to adjust. That's something that I don't know how many other people do, but like all our lower control arms, radius rods, are all have anti-seize on the threads, and they all come pre-adjusted. And we're going to talk about that a little later on because this is suspension day. Let's see. Sway bar end links. Okay, Dylan wants to know the proper ways to mount harnesses. Okay, there's lots of different ways to mount harnesses. Now, we've got something else I pulled out of the Speed Therapy Academy. So let me pull it up here. It's something we got from Schroet, a while ago. Okay, this is from Schroet Racing, and I'm just going to kind of go through it. What we'll do is I'll have Brad put this in the Speed Therapy Society resource section, so that you can go in there and read it at your leisure because it's kind of lengthy. But I just kind of scroll through so you can kind of get an idea. This is the Schroet's recommendation. Warning. Now you can tell that lawyers wrote this because there's warnings everywhere. Okay, this talks about, there's the basic parts of the Schroet. More warnings, and they talk about the iliac crest, where you want to have the main lap belt. And this is something else when we had Ben O'Connor from Impact come into the Speed Therapy Academy and do a full evening on the proper way to do harness belts and how they ended up where they are. He did a lot of good information on safety and harness belts. And this is nothing more than just kind of shows the difference between having like a Hans device versus not having a Hans device. And you can tell this guy at the top's had a bad day. Okay, more warnings, what to do, what not to do. Here's where it gets into, you're always looking for 0 to 20% over the shoulder to the mounting. You never really want to go straight down. And this is, we'll have this so you can download this and look at it yourself because there's a lot of information here. More warnings, more examples of how the different angles things have to be. Another warning. More warnings. Oh, guess what? More warnings. Right, wrong. So now this kind of shows you how you can wrap the harness, your shoulder harnesses over if you've got a harness bar or a roll bar, the best way to do it. And then this is the way to do it if you've got like a loop. And here's some more examples of mounting the loops. And some more. And some more. Oh, another warning. Let's talk about pull up and pull down. If you have a choice between a pull down and pull up lap belt, always go for the pull up. I can tell you from experience, much easier to adjust when you're sitting in the car. And then here's some more do's and don'ts, wrongs and rights. And another warning. Let's talk about the ends. And another warning. And this goes into mounting to the car. Here's some additional information on mounting. Another warning. This would be like in Formula cars when we run the sports cars, sports prototypes cars. That's what we would use to mount them against the bulkhead. And another warning. And here's all kinds of wrongs and rights. The wrong way to do things, the right way to do things. And another warning. And another wrong, another right. More wrongs and rights. This is on a Hans device. I strongly recommend anybody who gets past novice and in intermediate class think about getting a head and neck restraint. It's just really good insurance. And what they're telling you here is if you've got extra, it needs to go up on the inside and not over the edge, because that in an impact that would have the potential of sliding off, which renders your head and neck device inoperable. And another warning. Oh, a couple more warnings. Can you tell that lawyers put this together? Another warning. Imagine that. Okay, this goes into ways you can do with your harness bar, what's right and what's wrong. Okay, so anyway, we're going to, I'm going to have Brad post that up in the resource section of Speed Therapy Society so that you can download it for yourself. And there's a lot of information there to kind of go through it at your leisure. So here's a pop quiz. How many warning signs were there in that piece of literature? 22. I actually had to go through it. It just drove me nuts. There's so many warnings in there. I guess the lawyers are really trying to, cover their butts, but nevertheless, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can mount them depending on the car and the application. So that's why I pulled that up. I mean, you can just download that and read through it, and that'll give you really good information. Okay, so let's see, harnesses. Note here, if you're just joining us, I'm Kenny Brown. This is Cars and Coffee, and I'm sharing some really good information today. I think we should pretty much just jump into the main tech section, which is talking about rear suspensions. Now, last week, Omar wanted to know what I like better for a racing, whether a 3-link or a 4-link rear suspension. And Maggie wanted to know the difference between a 3-link and a torque arm. Okay, well, I can tell you as far as which way I prefer 3-link or 4-link, whichever one has the best geometry. And because grip in a car, whether it's front grip or rear grip, it's all about suspension geometry, putting as much weight on the tire as you can at all times to get the maximum grip. So what I did is I actually pulled out, let's see if I can pull this up here. I pulled out a few pages from the Speed Therapy Academy. When we do in the academy, we talk about suspensions. It's 2 weeks. And we only talk about suspensions, but I spent a lot of time on suspension geometry, why it's important, and how you calculate suspension geometry and how you get the car to grip. And that's suspension geometry is one of the reasons why my suspensions handle so much better than the other suspensions that are out there, because I've been paying a lot of attention to rear and front suspension geometry since 86/87, with the Celine endurance cars that I built and engineered. And actually, that's turned into my advanced geometry suspension systems, better known as AGS. And for the S197s, we are at AGS 4.0, which is the 4th generation. Gen 1 of AGS goes all the way back to 1987. I think it's 87 through about 88 or 89. And then with each new update, I take the best of the previous generation and carry that over and make other improvements. So by the time we got to Gen 4 and S197 Mustangs, I mean, I got really, really good suspension geometry. And we're going to talk about that. Okay, as far as 3-link and 4-links, there's different kinds of 3-links and 4-links. This shows the parallel 3-link, parallel 4-link, and parallel 3-link, and also triangulated. I kind of refer this to as displayed. And this is an example of, this is similar to what's on an S197. It's a 3-link with a panner bar, which is pretty common setup. But the thing about, we'll get to panner bars and watch links in a minute, but anytime you've got parallel trailing arms for rear suspension, you have to have something for lateral location. Otherwise, it's going to fly all the way around. Now, when you've got triangulated, this is sort of self-centering. Okay, so using a pannered rod is lateral location. Now, here's another picture of a triangulated or splayed upper control arms, which are self-centering. They keep the axle centered. And here's this is like a double splayed setup. And here is the S197 Fox Mustangs. They've got a double splay, and you can see the double splay. And I mean, it's good for locating the axle, but I can tell you that the rear suspension geometry on these is not particularly good for a number of reasons. Let's see, get back here. Okay, now wherever the panner bar crosses the center line of the car, right there, that's the roll center. That's the geometrical point at the back of the car wants to roll around. Now Mustangs have the panner bar up pretty much in the middle of the differential, and as you go around a corner, you can just feel that inside tire. You feel the car roll up, and you feel the inside tire getting light. That's because the roll center is high. Now, there's 2 ways to locate lateral location for rear axle. One's a panner bar, and the other's a Watts link. Now, a Watts link is technically the best way to locate for lateral location of the rear axle. However, the problem arises is wherever the center pin is on the bell crank, that is your roll center. And because of the way the bell crank goes, it's really difficult to move your roll center down. Now, I moved in our AGS 4.0 rear grip kit, we moved the panner bar all the way down to the bottom of the differential. So we moved the roll center from the middle of the differential down to the bottom. It's about 4 inches or so. With the Watts link, you can't quite do that. Now, back in the Trans Am days, what we used to do is we used to take a Watts link and mount it horizontally to the bottom of the differential so that we'd get the benefit of a Watts, but we'd also put the roll center on the bottom of the diff. Now, on those cars, it was easy because they have like an underslung chassis, so it's easy to just go right over and hook the the radius rods off the bell crank to the chassis. Where in a Mustang, it gets a little more complicated. And plus, there's only so low you can get the Watts link. So that's why I stuck with the panner bar. It's simple, it's lightweight, and we can get the roll center all the way down to the bottom of the differential, which really helps the back of the car handle. Now, when we get to the Mustang, the problem is if you draw at the suspension geometry, what happens is your roll center ends up being, I can't remember now, it's like 17, 18 inches off the ground, which is really high. And that's why the back of Fox and SN95 Mustangs have so much roll to them, and they have such little rear grip. So back again, we were doing the AGS 3.0 for the SN95 Mustangs. We introduced a panner bar And the panther bar was not there for axle location because displayed control arms locate the axle. It was there to defeat the factory roll center and introduce a new roll center at the bottom of the differential. And that worked really, really well. We haven't brought that particular product back because it was one of those real, pain in the butt type of products. The first issue we ran into is the real estate in the back of an SN95 Fox is really tight. So packaging that in there around the exhaust systems was a problem, because everybody had a different exhaust system and everybody expected our parts to fit their exhaust system. I think we had 4 different, we used to call them Track Kit Plus, 4 different pattern setups based on different exhaust systems. And even though we'd engineer it so there's plenty of clearance around the exhaust, we still have people complain. And what they didn't realize is they either had the exhaust mounted wrong or they didn't allow enough room because the exhaust will expand. So that was the big complaint of people. They didn't understand that, okay, we build the product to fit most of them. You have to figure out how to make it work. And the other thing is people would not read the instructions, and they would not, when you're running a panther bar to defeat the roll center and introduce a new roll center, it has to be 0 preload on it, which means at ride height, you need to be able to slide one of the bolts in and out with any preload. People wouldn't read that. They'd put the panther bar on, when it was up in the air, jack it down, they preload the whole thing. So you'd have the panther bar fighting against the upper control arms, the center of the axle. And so it's just one of those products we didn't bring back. At some point, I'm going to do a new rear suspension for Fox and SN95 live axles. But for right now, the big thing we're using on Fox and SN95 is IRS. And we're the only people that really understand the IRS and support it. So anyway, that's the kind of like the geometry, 3-link or 4-link. Now we get to torque arm. Torque arm is absolutely my least favorite. Without getting too deep into geometry, the instant center is controlled. You don't have any with the 3-link, like the S197 3-link was just a joy to work with because it wasn't really hard to create the geometry I wanted by moving the pickup points around. But when you've got a torque arm, you're kind of stuck. Your instant center, which has to do with anti-squat, is kind of fixed, and you can't do much with it. And the only reason these work so good, they work in forward. They're really good for forward bite, but they have some issues in braking and some other things that I'll kind of get to. Stop sharing for just a second to show you something. Okay, this is sort of like my Bible, the race car vehicle dynamics. This is, you talk about, this is super heady stuff. But in here, there's a huge section on suspension geometry that I've read through maybe 20, 30 times. That's been kind of like the foundation for what I've designed in suspensions. But what they talk about in here on page 657 and 658, and actually had to take, we have this, the Academy guys have access to this, but it's on the description's on 3 different pages. So I had to cut and paste. But here's what they say about a torque arm. It says, this suspension has a fixed side view swing arm that is borderline acceptable. Power hop and or brake hop can occur with this type of suspension. The amount of anti-squat obtained is limited because the height of the side view instant center can never realistically be raised even as high as the crank center line. 30% is about maximum obtainable. To assure roll understeer, the lower control arm must be angled downward at the front. That's pretty standard in the stuff that I do. And this also means that the side view swing arm instant center height will be low. Okay, well, let me get back to sharing that picture again. So what they're talking about, this is the instant center, and I'm not going to. There's like too much information to even try to give it to you in short spurts. But like I say, in the Academy, we spent 2 weeks going through suspension geometry. But the instant center has to do with your anti-squat, and it's very limited. And I can attest to what was written in the textbook. Is I was driving. We built some 95 Cobras for a couple of customers. We call them the Cobra twins. One was red, one was white, and I mean they were really cool cars. I mean they were full suspension. I still had the Windsor motors. We bored and stroked them at the 352, I think, and they were just an awesome car to drive on track. And the guys that we sold them to just loved track days. What they do, they have a big semi, and they would rent a place like Putnam that I met them at one time, and they would bring like 3 or 4 cars apiece. And I asked them why they bought so many cars, and it was really simple. They thought, well, one breaks, we just got another one we can drive. So I drove one of their, I can't remember if it was a Camaro or a Firebird, and the torque arm was originally introduced 1924 on Type 35 Bugatti. GM used it pretty extensively in the Camaros simply because of packaging. It was really easy to package, not really the best in handling, but easy to package. And then some, I guess, for Mustangs, somewhere on the West Coast, for like NASA racing, somebody put a torque arm on a car, and it worked better than the standard suspension, which really doesn't work very good. So everybody thinks the torque arm is the only way to go. Well, it's better, but it's really not the optimum you can do. Suspensions have come a long way since 1924. And, I was driving a Camaro, I can't remember Camaro Firebird, with the torque arm in there. And Putnam, I can't remember the name of the corner, but there's one that I brake really, really hard, go in deep, and kind of come around. It's not quite a hairpin, but it's pretty close to it. I can get around that pretty good by going really late, braking hard, and then turning in late. And when I tried to do that with a Camaro, the whole back of the car started bouncing all over the place. And then when I finally got through the corner, I just heard this clunk, clunk, clunk under the car. So I drove back to the pits, and I told them there's a clunk in the car, and the torque arm came loose. So it's something that happens to them quite a bit. So that kind of tests the fact that the torque arm, did hop a lot under hard braking, which means that with the geometry I have in S197 rear suspension, you can outbrake a torque arm suspension like crazy. And that's the best time to pass somebody's under braking. So the other thing I don't like about torque arms is they're heavy. They're big and heavy. They add a lot of mass, unsprung weight to the rear axle. And it's like, unsprung weight is your enemy. The heavier something is, the more energy it takes to move it. So if you've already got an axle that's pretty heavy, add more weight to it, it's going to take even more energy to move it around. And here's another version that actually has a Watts link included. And it's a lot of weight and a lot of complexity that I just, I don't like. In all my years, I've come up with a better solution, and this is it. This is my S197 rear grip kit. It's simple, it's elegant, it's lightweight. It actually saves a lot of weight in the back, and it works like crazy. And it's not parts, it's a system. Every piece in the rear grip kit is engineered to work with every other piece to improve rear suspension geometry. Starting from the back is the panner bar. Remember I said we have a panner bar relocation kit? This is how far down we move the panner bar. It's like 4 inches down to the bottom of the differential. So the back of the car doesn't want to roll up as much. Between bringing the rear roll center down in the rear grip kit and the front roll center up in the front grip kit, it takes the angle that points down into the ground and makes the front of the car push like crazy and flattens that out so you can get to the gas sooner. And then the next part that we do is we've got axle brackets to relocate the pickup point on the axle. And this is all about anti-squat. It's interesting is like everybody has axle brackets now, and a lot of them have like multiple holes. There's only one hole in my axle brackets. And that's because, I've done the math, done the research, done the testing, and I have already engineered where I think the best instant center is for the best anti-squat for the back. The anti-squat, which is where it really gets the power down off the corner, it also is anti-lift, which under hard braking, the back of the car is the one to jump up so much. So between where I move the pickup point on the axle brackets and also the U-link upper control arm module is longer than factory, and the pickup point is moved. Again, so I can impact by drawing a line from the pickup point through the front out to where it intersects with this, and that gives us the instant center and the anti-squat that I'm looking for. Again, we talk about that extensively in the academy. And the other little trick that I do is the control arms on 197 are splayed outward at the front. So what we do is I've got bushings, so we take and we move the front part in and the back part out. So now we've got lower control arms are parallel to the center line of the car, which all race cars have parallel control arms. And by making them parallel, if you look at a stock one, looked like down from the top in plan view, and you were to take and draw a line back where the two lower control arms intersect, it'd be well behind the car. And if you take that point and you draw a line from that point up through the roll center, the factory roll center is up high, then you got your roll axis is pointing up in the back, and that's not what we're looking for. So by making these parallel, there is no conversion of the lines, which means the conversion point is infinity. So now the roll axis is the roll center, which is the bottom of the diff, is parallel to the lower control arms, which just keeps the back of the car so nailed down. I think this is the absolute, in my view, the absolute second best rear suspension that's available for Mustangs today. And I said second best. Why is it second best? Because this is AGS 4.0, Advanced Geometry Suspension System 4.0. This is the new, not very well known because it's kind of like been a secret, AGS 4.5. This system is patent pending right now, and it does absolutely, totally amazing things. It's pretty complex, so we're just building these in small lots. We'll be doing another, I think, webinar on this on the K-Link in the near future. But the big feature is the fact that it decouples axle roll and body roll. So it doesn't matter how much the body rolls going through a corner, the axle is decoupled and the axle stays flat on the ground with the same amount of weight on both rear tires all the time. So the grip is just amazing. In fact, there's so much rear grip that we have to go way up in rear spring rate just to get the car balanced again, so the front will turn. We actually run the spring rates on these cars just like we do on an IRS car, which is kind of strange. And the other thing that it does, aside from decoupling axle roll and body roll, is it lowers the roll center a lot, way lower than anybody ever thought possible in a live axle car. And only the people that have them know just how low that roll center is. But we'll do another webinar on the K-Link rear suspension system, and it is a system. Like everything I do, it's my suspensions are only three basic components: the rear grip, front grip, and springs and shocks. Because again, systems, everything has to work together to work. So this is the newest. If you're interested, you can set up a 15-minute consult. We can talk about it. But this is more for advanced type people. Kind of the question becomes, how good is it? Well, let's see. I think Steve out in the West Coast, I think he picked up 3 or 4 seconds with rear grip kit 1 off his best times and on this one track. And then with the K-Link, he picked up another 4 seconds. We got another customer, David, at not Laguna, Sears Point. I don't know what it's called now. It used to be Sears Point. When I raced it, that's what I called it. So anyway, at Sears Point in Northern California, David has a Boss 302S. So the difference between the suspension that comes on a Boss 302S and he did the full AGS 4.5 front grip kit, rear grip kit, and the JRZ springs and shocks. The difference was he was 8 seconds a lot faster. So nobody else has anything like that. That's why I spent a lot of years working on that. That's why we've applied for a patent on it. So that kind of gets through. We got to just about everything. Let's see. The Transform Your Driving Experience workshop is coming up August 23rd to 26th. So mark that on your calendars. That'll be in the evening, around 7 to 8, and it'll be on Zoom, I think. So it'll be. I think you need to sign up for it. I don't know if Carrie's there. If she can add some to that. Are you still there, Carrie?
I sure am. So we have, I'm going to take my big face off of there. There we go. So we have the Transform Your Driving Experience workshop. If any of you have ever gone through it, it's really quite the awesome experience. Kenny goes through 4 days of how to transform your driving experience, obviously. And it talks about the top 5 things you need to do when planning a build. And he also talks about, coincidentally, there's another 5.
My 5 secrets to making my cars work.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting what he shares. Everybody that has gone through it has loved it. So that's why we're doing it again. It's back by popular demand. It is August, in 2 weeks from now, August 23rd. It starts on a Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. It runs for 4 days. It's about an hour and a half, depending on how many questions he has at the end of the session. So it's not a lot of time, but it's definitely worth the taking. So if you're interested in that, there will be a link in the comment area that Brad's going to add. And you need to register for the event and sign up for the to be in the Speed Therapy Society Facebook group, because that's where it's being held. If you're a non-Facebook user, because a lot of people may be watching this through YouTube, you can just register, and there'll be an email. You can email me, and I'll make sure that you're in attendance. So it's kind of a really cool event, Ken.
Okay, so that's the workshop, and well, I'm reading my notes, and my notes aren't quite the same as I remember them. Also, we're going to do. I keep mentioning Speed Therapy Academy, which if you really want to learn this stuff, if you want to be able to go to track and know how to just do everything, how to set your car up, how to adjust your car, how to drive your car. The Academy is a 15-week course, something like that. And I go through the whole car, everything, how everything works. Spend a lot of time on suspension and suspension geometry, because that's what really makes my cars go. We spend like a couple weeks on aerodynamics, how aero works around the car. And once you kind of get the general idea, and all of a sudden it makes sense, and you can do your own little bit of aero work. And then like we're just wrapping up this academy, and we're going through a whole bunch of troubleshooting and adjustments on tracks and how to make things work. And then I think we've got the fire suppression master class coming up. We actually have a whole bunch of master classes in there. We did safety, we did cooling, we did plumbing. What else? We driving. There's some other ones. There's so many I can't remember. How about that?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's coming up.
Look at your screen. Look at your screen.
That's coming up September 14th. So I guess also there's some early bird specials on that. So anybody who's ever taken the academy can attest to the fact that it's well worth the time and investment. It really will educate you in a way that you won't find out this stuff anywhere else. In fact, what I talk about on Saturday mornings even, you won't find anyplace else. There's a lot of misinformation. I tell people the worst place to get information is the internet and the paddock, or the guy down the street who thinks he knows everything. So, but I try to, I don't know everything, but I've been doing this for a very long time. Like 50 years building really great cars, and I spend a lot of my time in professional motorsports. So, what I share is from my experience, not from something I heard or something I read in a book. But except stuff that I read in my textbook, let's call it. I read a lot of stuff in there, and that's like the real stuff. That's legit. So I think, did I run out of everything to say?
Yes, you did, but I haven't ran out of things to say. So just in summary, we have 2 events coming up. One is a Transform Your Driving Experience. It's a 4-day workshop. I see a error there in the banner. 4-day workshop, and that starts August 23rd. It's a free workshop. It's online. You just need to make sure you register for it. It should be a pretty full session. And then we have the Speed Therapy Academy fall session coming up, and that is September 14th. And if you've considered in the past, I recommend signing up early. I think this is going to be a really full session for us. There's a lot of people that couldn't do it this summer that are wanting to do it in the fall. So make sure you sign up early for that. Next week, I'll be telling you about some of the specials, early bird specials on the Speed Therapy Academy.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess we can move on to, do we have any questions today?
We sure do. Let me get to them. And just scrolling through here. The first question is from Facebook user. I'm not sure who that is. He didn't sign in through StreamYard. So it says, thank you. What about the nozzles for the fire suppression? I've heard 2. I'll put it up to you, Karina. I've heard 2 in the engine bay, 1 to the driver, 1 in the rear. I have a fuel surge tank with a firewall.
Okay, if you've got, depends on how big your system is. I mean, if you've got just a small system, you got to be pretty prudent on where you put them. You know, I would always go for a bigger system because I think 2 in the engine bay, 1 in the driver, 1 in the rear. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you need to think about where's the most probable place a fire is going to happen. It's either going to be in the engine or under the back of the car where the fuel cell is or fuel tank. And the other thing is you want to be sure that you keep fire away from the driver. So if you've got a big enough system, yeah, I don't see any problem with that. I mean, you can just think to yourself, where do I want to keep the fire down? Maybe you want to do 2 for the driver, 1 for the front, 1 for the back. It just depends how big of a system you've got and how many nozzles it'll support. The bigger. This is one case that the bigger is better, and it's worth the sacrifice in weight to get a better system there. I'll tell you what. This week we're doing a master class with SPA, and I'll come back next week and report if he has anything to say that's different. So how about that?
Okay. So here's the next question. Is it true that the S550 added 35 pounds of extra steel to reinforce the roof and the door? If yes, would a roll cage be enough for HPDE?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that the 550 is an extremely rigid platform. They had to because of the double lower McPherson in the front and also the IRS in the back. It really had to step up their game and make a chassis super stiff. As far as the roof and the door, there's always extra weight in the door because there's a heavy bar right in the door for side intrusion, and the roof has to pass safety standards for rollover protection. But would a roll cage be enough for HPD? Sure. HPD. I mean, there's rarely any huge crashes. As soon as I say that, there's going to be a big one. But no, I think a roll bar. In fact, for our track day cars, all the way up through advanced for 550s, we got a 4-point roll bar that we bolt into them that works really good. And the rest of the chassis is so rigid that, if you got a 197 or 550, we've got a 4-point roll bar that bolts in. In fact, we're installing another one this week. So the answer is yes.
Okay. Before we get on to the next question, guess who's in the house? Ben O'Connor. You were just talking about him. Good thing you didn't say anything bad about him, huh?
Yeah, good thing. Ben is from Impact Safety, and he does a master class on safety on seatbelts. How they work. The best place to put it. Why seatbelts or harnesses are designed the way they are. So yeah, it's kind of like every time he's on. And when we have master classes for the academy, every time one of these guys come on, and what they all are, they're all guys I know in the industry. They're experts in the field, to come on and share some of their knowledge in a format that, our guys in the academy can ask questions. But anytime we have one of the master class guys on, I always learn something. So if you ever stop learning, you might as well take a dirt nap, because there's no sense in going on. Okay.
So I have another question, just to get you guys' comments on this. The master class is like every other Thursday. We pull in another expert as part of the Speed Therapy Academy. I was thinking of maybe offering that as a separate class. It wouldn't be as expensive as Speed Therapy Academy, but it would be really kind of worth going through that. So let me know if anybody would just want to take the master class series by themselves. It'd probably be 8 sessions over 4 months.
Okay.
So make a comment on that.
And I see a question on my screen.
Yep.
Is there a preference between staggered and square setup running your suspension systems? And this 197. Nope, not at all. My suspension is about geometry. And it's about, making the car, have as much grip as possible. As far as square and staggered setups, what we do, if somebody wants to run a square setup and they're not running like stupid, like big power, my favorite is 19 by 10, all 4 corners, and 285 35s. That's a really good square setup. Our staggered setup for like Coyote cars or GT 350s or GT 500s is 19 by 10 front with either a 285 or a 295, depending on the specific car, and then a 305 on the back. But the suspension will work great no matter what, whether square or staggered, doesn't matter. I mean, it's what the suspension is doing is it's giving you the biggest opportunity to put the most grip into the car, and if you add more tires, then you even get more grip. Okay.
Here, just a comment. I thought this was pretty cool. 4.5 system is badass.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, when I do the next webinar on it, you're going to find it's been 20 years in the making, and that's why we went ahead and applied for a patent, because it does things that up until now have not been thought to be possible with a live axle car, and it works really, really well. So
here's another one from Tim Tomasak on the K-Link too. It looks great, almost too nice to put under the car. So true too.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of comments when the guys that have got them first open the box, they're just blown away. I mean, it's when you see it in person, it's pretty staggering. I mean, it's really well made. The geometry I put into the mechanism itself is it took a long time, and all the pieces or the machine pieces are beautiful. I mean, it is like a piece of art.
Here's another K-Link right here from Anibus Vero. Anibus actually has our front grip kit and the rear grip kit, and it looks like he may have the JRZs as well. When the 4.5 rear becomes available, can you still use a JRZ coilover, or do you need to run the Strange coil?
Oh, no. If you got JRZ coilovers, all we need to do is just change rear spring rate and add a couple clicks of rebound. I would much prefer the JRZs over the Strange. So.
Okay.
And actually, it is available now. We just put them out in the small lots. So.
Yeah. So, Anibus, just give Rich a call, and he'll be able to help you through that. Or
set up a 15-minute consult.
Yeah, that's a good point to set up. Anybody can set up a 15-minute consult with Kenny. Let me find the next question. Here we go. Also, I just want to let you know, since we're on the K-Link, that you don't know this yet, Ken, but the K-Link Livenar is scheduled for the 3rd Wednesday of September. I don't have the date in front of me, but we'll be letting you know a little bit about that. We want to get through this Transform Your Driving Experience workshop first. Here we go. Dylan.
Wait a second. Have you guys ever noticed that I learn about things that are coming up the same time you do?
That way you can't say no.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Dylan, what's your thoughts on upgrading to a solid steering shaft like the ones Maximum Motorsports offers?
Okay, I'm not sure exactly what it is that you're talking about, but so let's just say you're looking at a solid steering shaft from, let's say, the steering rack up to the cabin. If it's a street car, I would kind of stay away from that. And the reason being is that your steering shaft on a street car is built, has some safety devices that's built into collapse. so that under a frontal impact, the steering shaft collapses and it doesn't like push straight up and push the steering wheel into your chest. Even in some race cars will actually have like something in the middle that'll actually collapse under front impact. So if it's a real race car, that's kind of like a different story. Then typically you'd want to run a solid shaft. But in a street car, I think I'd stick with the factory just from the safety factor, because that's why they put the collapsible feature in steering shafts, is so that under frontal impact, it doesn't just push the whole thing right into your chest. And that's kind of a gruesome thought, but okay.
Okay. Here's a really good comment from Ben O'Connor. This is a quote from Hal. "We reserve the right to learn." Hal Bear.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Yeah, we met Ben decades ago when he was working for Bear Brakes, and then he moved over to Impact, and we stay in touch, and we use Bear Brakes and we use Impact safety stuff. So.
Okay, so if anybody has any other questions, this is the time to add them. This is the last call for questions. Let me see if I've missed anything. If I've missed anything, quick type in and let me know. Let's see. Oh, here's an interesting one. This is just more adulation, but it's so true. So here we go. Kenny's right. "The Academy makes my track days better. My tire pressures, the car's handling, camber issues, all improved." That's a pretty big statement. So,
well, thank you for that. That's the whole idea. Is the Academy is to give you guys real information based off of my experience. Because, like I say, the worst place to get information about your car is in the paddock. Because this guy down there is going to say, "Oh, I'll do this," and another guy says, "Oh, I'll do that." They have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, they're operating off this much information, and they don't know what's in your car, how your car works. So the whole idea is to give you a real education on everything, how everything works, and how you put it together, and then how to set up and adjust. We even talk about, in fact, behind me, that was from here. Yeah, that was from last week. We even talk about how to set your paddock up, your pit up in the paddock when you go to a track day. So it's a pretty comprehensive program. And like I say, the end is when we get to all the adjustments and setup and everything. But I do that at the end because I want to get through everything else first. We look at not only shock absorbers, but the different kinds, how they work. We sort of dissect them, so to speak. And then again, a lot of suspension stuff, a lot of geometry stuff, a lot of aero stuff, safety, plumbing, cooling, and it goes on and on and on. So.
Okay, here we go. Oh, Kobe, you're killing me. And you're so right. When will you have hats and shirts available? I need to commit to this. It's on my list. It's been on the list since we started Cars and Coffee. So Ken, you can harass me on this. Kobe,
I do.
I know. Kobe, let me get back to you next weekend, and I'll try to come up with a firm date, because I think about that every week. Hats.
Yeah, I can truthfully say she's been talking about it for about a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we've got. I mean, there's not a lot of us, and we've got a lot going on. Between the Saturdays and my classes and everything, and of course Carrie's kind of been out for a little bit, so that makes it even worse.
Okay, here we have another question. Roy Merrick. Rory, yeah, sorry about that, Rory. I really butchered your name. Is there different center sections available for the Fox IRS, and is cast better than aluminum?
No, I mean, you basically got your choice of the aluminum is the best, is lighter, and I would just automatically go with aluminum. I think the cast ones were in like maybe the T-Birds and the Mark 7 or 8s, whatever they are. But the aluminum in a center section is the best with the torsion in it. And we always put torsions in the IRS cars because it works wonderfully. So yeah, if you're going to do an IRS and a Fox, aluminum, all the way aluminum. Also, I might point out that are we supposed to do an IRS workshop coming up here too, pretty soon?
Yeah, too? We have so many workshops, a little time. Yeah.
Okay.
So just going forward, every third Wednesday of the month, we're going to be having a workshop going forward. So.
Okay. when we do our because we're the only guys that really understand and know how to make IRS work in Mustangs, is because back in the 70s I was working on IRS cars, and to me it was no big deal. I knew how to make them work. I had like 4 upgrades to the IRS package. One, the first is the forward torque brace, aluminum diff bushings, a rear steer kit to help take out some of the roll steer in the car. And then the second upgrade is the tubular lower control arms with coilover shocks. The third is the tubular upper control arms, which weigh less than half the factory. And then the fourth one is we actually take and make a complete geometry change on the carrier. We cut all the pickup points off and they're put back on to optimize the geometry as best can be optimized within the architecture. But as part of that package, we actually cut off, there's a great big huge clunky mount that goes in the back that we actually cut that off, and we put a bracket so that it bolts directly to the frame rail. So it takes a great big chunk of metal out. You can get wider tires on there, but it also, if the carrier in the back is bolted solid to the frame rail, it's not moving anywhere. But we just recently have made an update to that bracket. We put a couple extra holes so that it will bolt on to most Fox bodies. I'm not going to say all, because there's like from 79 to 93, you get before 86, and there's, some of the Fox bodies are kind of strange, but it should bolt on to most of them to the existing holes for the quad shock. So.
Okay, here we go. We have another question. And here we go. Having your rear grip kit installed without your front kit yet, any recommendation setting for the front?
The settings would be the same. It just, with the front grip kit, the car's just going to, when you turn the wheel, it's going to turn. But, it's the same. We've got the alignment settings should be in the resource section of the Speed Therapy Society. But basically, it's pretty simple. For the street, we're looking about negative 0.125 camber. Caster, maximum caster, as much caster as it'll take. And then toe 16th, or toe out, which is minus 0.25 to minus 0.3. Be the same. Now, when you get on track, it'll take, you got to be running at least 2.5 degrees of camber. I don't like running more 3 degrees camber because you're not putting enough tire on the ground. But the big thing about the front grip kit is when you turn the wheel, the car turns. I think Wendy is one of our people that have the suspension on. When she put the front grip kit on, her comment was that now when she went into the corner, rather than turning the wheel and waiting for the understeer to stop and for it to grip, that when you turn the wheel, it just turns. Two things that get fed back to me of people when they first drive their S197 with their full 4.0 suspension system on there. The first thing that happens is they come up to a hard braking zone, they hit the brakes, and then they have to drive up to the corner again and hit the brakes again because it stops so short. And the next thing is a lot of people, when they turn in, they actually turn over the inside curve because they're not used to the car turning so sharp. So, the alignment would be the same. You just have to watch, if you're on track, your geometry isn't going to be good enough to make it turn really well. That's where the front grip kit comes into play. And the suspension settings are on somewhere in the society, the resource section. You can just download them and stick them in your notebook.
Okay, so we continually have questions coming in. Okay, Kenny, we're going to need to negotiate after this because now you're on your talent overtime wages because it's 1 hour past the time you've been on. So anyway, here's your next question. A2D Racing. I have an IRS frame on the way from you. I have yet to see a drag racer apply your modded IRS chassis, so fingers crossed on the geometry changes and extra anti-squat helps launching my IRS 03 Cobra. Yeah,
it should. The thing about the drag racing and road racing is, as far as the anti-squat, the principles, in geometry that I use to engineer a car to get grip and get off a corner, basically would transfer over to the drag strip. It's going to make more grip. And then, of course, you've got to have a really good set of springs and shocks. That's one of the problems is not having enough spring or shock in the back, especially shock to control the rear axle. But with the urethane, with the upper and lower control arms and urethane bushings, the front solid mount on the diff forward, torque brace and aluminum diff bushings, and the geometry, you should have a noticeable improvement on forward bite. Even though IRS cars are not really good for drag racing, because it's a limit to how much anti-squat you can actually put into them realistically. But it will be better than factory. I'll put it that way. Okay.
Okay. Here is our last question of the day, and I think it is a stumper. You ready?
Yep.
Ben O'Connor, how much camber should I run on my pit trailer?
Well, it depends on if you're doing track days or road racing with your pit trailer. Because you're going to want to run more if you're racing, and less if you're just kind of running around the pits. You really don't need much camber. So.
Okay, so that's it for today. I just wanted to add one more thing, and then we're done. We won't drag this out any longer. But if you're enjoying the Cars and Coffee and there's something you want to go back and reference, just realize that on YouTube, we have all the episodes listed on there, so you can replay the whole episode. And Brad is actually breaking down snippets of each one of Kenny's segments. So you should be able to go there, and if you're looking for something on brakes, there'll be a break section. You can maybe find what Kenny was referencing. So it'll be a little shorter, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. So enjoy that. We have one more comment here. Let's see. Nope, it's just the YouTube channel. Okay, we're done.
Okay, cool. And that's actually Kenny Brown Performance TV on YouTube. There's tons of content there. This is episode 65. It's hard to believe, but all 65 episodes are there, along with a whole bunch of other tech things. So it's a genuine resource. Certainly go there and have a look around. Share it with your friends. Because the more the merrier. The more people we have getting on board, the more educated people we have out there, and the less disinformation that's out there. So listen, I enjoyed being here today. I hope you learned something. If you want to learn more, we've got the the workshop coming up. And if you want to even learn more than that, we've got another academy coming up. So thank everybody for being here. Again, I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something, because that's the whole idea. And again, if you've got questions or subject matter that you want me to talk about, send it in through the Speed Therapy Society or email it in, and I'll put that on the docket. And because I talk about what you guys want to learn about, just like today, when Omar and Maggie want to know about suspensions. You got just a little bit of taste of suspensions, but I hope you learned something. Okay, have a good week and weekend. The Academy guys, I'll see you Tuesday night. Everybody else, I'll see you this weekend. Good night, or good day.